You're watching OTT TV Scripture Reality.
Support the second. And then just like right now, if you fire, that's not free speech. From the very beginning, I have 20 days, 12 days, my son's hunt, guess what? He's not allowed to own it anyway. I'm not taking that gun away at all. You need 100 rounds? No. I did not say that. That's not true. I did not say that. It's a viral video like the other ones that came out that they're saying they lied.
Well, he just clarified it.
Wait. Taking AR-14s and look. Taking AR-14s and look.
Hold on. Hey, let's keep moving. There's a lot of guys wanting this.
I'm not worried.
There's a lot of great things. And there's a lot of great things.
Look, here's the deal. Here's the deal. Are you able to own the machine gun? I said, are you able to own one? That's right. AR-15s are legal.
Who in God's name needs a weapon that can handle 100 rounds? For God's sake. I think we have to, in fact, have universal background checks, eliminate assault weapons as being illegal to be sold or owned in the United States, as well as limiting the number of bullets that can be in a clip to 10.
Recent events illustrate again and with chilling vividness the tragedy that results from the wide and easy availability of guns with firepower that overwhelms our police, of weapons that have, in my view, no place in hunting or sport, and whose only real function, is to kill human beings at a ferocious pace.
Biden administration means they're going to come for my guns.
Bingo. You're right if you have an assault weapon. The fact of the matter is they should be illegal, period. You can determine the outcome. You, the people between 18 and 25. If you vote in the same percentage that others voted, that the population at large voted, we'd have over 5 million additional votes. And you know the consequences of this one issue of gun violence. You understand it, so get engaged, help us. Help us change the way we deal with these issues.
And he has an ambitious plan on a lot of areas and on a lot of issues. I will say, as vice president, and even before that, the president took on the NRA twice and won.
I come from a state that's a major gun-owning state. I introduced the first assault weapons ban. I, in fact, got it passed. I'm the only guy that beat the NRA twice.
This is an issue he is personally committed to. Many in this building are personally committed to. I think we have a couple of proposals currently before Congress, but again, this is an issue he is personally committed to. He has a personal, has worked on it many times in the past, but I don't have a date for you on when there would be a proposal.
and I've done some dumb things, and I'll do dumb things again.
So you're going to be going after your gun soon. You're going to be getting polished with all-in-one, and it's going to cost too much to retain it. This is all part of the Agenda 21. In order to qualify for the Great Reset, we have to be disarmed. They're doing talking about a buyback like Australia did. I got some clips here from a YouTuber, Legally Armed America. He did a good job putting together this 127 HR. So here you are.
This is one of the bills penned by Sheila Jackson Lee, probably the oldest living brain donor ever, like in the history of the country and the world. She's not a smart person. She's Hank Johnson stupid. Okay, getting right into it. Licensing of firearm and ammunition possession, registration of firearms. Under the firearm registration system, the owner of a firearm shall transmit to the Bureau, the FBI, the make, model, and serial number of the firearm, the identity of the owner of the firearm, the date the firearm was acquired by the owner, and where the firearm is or will be stored. You might be thinking that that's a little bit of a stretch. You'd be right, but hang on. Also, a notice specifying the identity of any person to whom in any period of time during which the firearm will be loaned to the person. So if you're planning to loan a firearm to a son or daughter, and we'll get more on that later because age is going to be an issue, or a friend, a family member of any sort, don't think you're still going to be able to do that, because you're not. So I'm going to give them every bit of this personal information on me and every bit of the specific information on those guys, as well as where to find me and all of these guys. You see where this is going, right? Access. This is access to this information. The Attorney General shall make the contents of the database accessible to all members of the public. Listen to what I'm saying. It says in black and white, to all members of the public. So everybody and anybody who wants to know where my firearms are, what firearms I have, how many I have, who they belong to, and all of that pertinent information that pertains to me and my firearms, now will know what I've got and where I have them at all times. Because if I don't give this information to the federal government, they can penalize me or throw me in jail. This is a dangerous and very slippery slope. It's much more than a slippery slope that we're dealing with right here. Moving on, that the requirements for the licensing system, a general license, except as otherwise provided in this subsection, the Attorney General shall issue to an individual a license to possess a firearm and ammunition. This is not just for a firearm. You must possess a license to possess, buy, transport any firearm or any amount of ammunition, 1 bullet or 1,000. But you got to be 21 years of age. That's correct. Right now, you can actually go hunting with a shotgun. You can take any firearm you want, and a young person can actually possess them. Now, depending on states, I know we're talking about the state of Louisiana. I live in the wonderful, great state of Louisiana, the sportsman's paradise. These things are legal in a free state. So a 15-year-old can go grab a shotgun and go duck hunting, dove hunting, quail hunting, whatever, and it is not against the law. Under this new bill, they have to be 21 years old or older to possess the firearm or ammunition. Also, to get that license, you have to undergo a criminal background check. This is the same background check that you currently go through when you purchase a new firearm from an FFL dealer. The thing is, you're just going to have to do this now simply to obtain the license. You're also going to have to undergo a psychological evaluation. Conducted in accordance with paragraph 2, and the evaluation does not indicate that the individual is psychologically unsuited to possess a firearm. You also will have to successfully complete a training course certified by the Attorney General, who is going to be an anti-gun person. You know who this is. It's Merrick Garland, right? That's the anti-gun Attorney General that would be behind all of this. Let's remember that too. We've got a very proven anti-gun person out there. He was a judge, or is a judge still. He's going to be the Attorney General. That's who Joe Biden has appointed as Attorney General. He's going to be in charge of all this. Look him up. Look at his history and you see what I'm saying. This training course is going to involve the use, safety, and storage of firearms that includes at least 24 hours of training. This 24 hours of training, somebody's got to get paid to do it. The second thing that I want you to think of as we move throughout this entire bill, and any bill that I ever talk about, but this one specifically, is who does it make safer? Or does it make anyone safer? Think about that. I want you to apply that in your mind as we go through here. The second kind of license that you will also need to obtain if you want to own antique firearms, the Attorney General shall issue to an individual a license to display an antique firearm in a residence of the individual if the individual is the holder of a license issued under subparagraph A. In other words, you still have to buy that standard license that we just talked about, that one with the 24 hours of training and all that good stuff, the psych eval and all that. You still got to do that. But if you want an antique, now you got to get a second license, the antique license. You got to prove that you're the holder of a license. You have to supply proof that the individual owns an antique firearm. Good luck with that. I've got a 1942 M1 Garand over there. Not really sure who owned it before me, but I know that I don't have any way of proving that I own it. So what happens if I can't prove that I own it? Because it says right here that I got to supply proof that the individual owns an antique firearm. I can't do that. Other than possession, that's the only way that I can show that I own that M1 Garand, and probably many of my other firearms. I've got guns that I didn't even buy, that were gifted to me by my dad or somebody else over the years. And I have to describe the manner in which the firearm will be displayed. You think this is going to be an acceptable manner of displaying my antique firearm like you see hanging on the wall right here? Doubt it, because they actually talk about safe storage. Demonstrate that the individual has provided for storage of the firearm in a safe, or facility approved by the Attorney General for the storage of firearms. I wonder if this facility that I'm in right now is deemed safe by the Attorney General, because I don't have a safe. This is my gun safe. Next up is the third license that you might want to purchase, and in this one, most of us are going to have to do that. For sure you're going to have two, because the standard and then this one, the military style weapons license. This one applies to almost every single gun that I have. The Attorney General shall issue to an individual a license to own and possess a military-style weapon if the individual is the holder of a license. After applying for a license under this subparagraph, licensee successfully completes a training course certified by the Attorney General. So not only am I buying my standard license and having to get 24 hours of training through my standard license, now I have to pay to get a military style weapon license to own any of these guns behind me, and I have to pay to receive another 24 hours of training and live fire training. These licenses are not lifetime licenses. In your first 5 years of owning a license, you have to renew it every single year. When you renew that license, you've got to pay for another license. It's not free. It's not a free renewal. Not only do you have to pay for that license every year during your first 5 years of having permission from the federal government to own a firearm, you've also got to take that 24 hours of training. Now, I think they might narrow it down to an additional 8 hours of training. But nevertheless, they are going to mandate an additional training course for your first 5 years. Now, why do I say 5 years? Because after the 5 years, they're going to let you renew every 3 years once you've had a license for 5 years. Don't know what the reasoning is behind that, because I am a gun person just like you are, and that doesn't make any sense. Clearly, again, we're dealing with anti-gun people and stupid people who are applying some kind of weird logic that they've concocted in Washington, D.C. and trying to apply it to regular people like us. Okay, we talked about a psychological evaluation. The evaluation is to be conducted in compliance with such standards shall be established by the Attorney General. Again, the Attorney General is going to decide what standard is applicable for you to be acceptable mentally to own, possess a firearm. Let's not forget, guys, and this is an important point, let's not forget that they are going to determine psychologically if we're fit to own a firearm. But remember that there are medical publications out there by severely anti-gun groups who have put publications out who have said if you want to own, carry, or possess a firearm, that you're already mentally unstable. You could fail your psych eval simply by wanting to get licensed to own and possess a firearm. Now, the psychological evaluation does not just stop with you. As deemed necessary by the licensed psychologist involved, the evaluation includes a psychological evaluation of other members of the household in which the individual resides, and as part of the psychological evaluation, the licensed psychologist interview any spouse of the individual, any former spouse, I don't see how that could go wrong, and at least 2 other people who are a member of the family of or an associate of the individual to further determine the state of mind, mental, emotional, and relational stability of the individual in relation to firearms. What an overstep. But also, you want to talk to at least 2 other people? What other people? 2 other people that I know. Who? Members of the family or an associate? Denial of a license. The Attorney General shall deny such a license to any individual if the individual is prohibited from, if the individual has been hospitalized with a mental illness, disturbance, or diagnosis, including depression. It also says the Attorney General may deny such a license to an individual if they have a chronic mental illness or disturbance. Again, what a wide open net that you're casting right there. Nothing specific. Prior psychological treatment or evaluation of the individual indicated that the individual engaged in conduct that posed a danger to self or others. You better watch what you put on your Facebook post. Suspension of a license. Okay, this is where it gets kind of good here. Lack of firearm insurance. Oh, did we talk about the firearm insurance yet? No, we didn't bring that up yet. Yeah, you're going to need that. Revocation of license. A license issued under this subsection to an individual who is or becomes prohibited by federal or state law from possessing a firearm is hereby revoked. Such an individual shall immediately return the license and surrender all firearms and ammunition owned or possessed by the individual to the Attorney General. Firearm insurance. Boy, boy, boy. Here we go again with the government getting involved in something that they got no business. In general, the Attorney General shall issue to any person who has applied for a license pursuant to subsection C and has paid the Attorney General the fee specified in paragraph 2. Let's skip down to paragraph 2 real quick. The fee specified in this paragraph is $800. Think of all these things that are adding up now. This is $800. Now, this is for firearm insurance. Remember, it's not insurance, by the way. It's a fee. It's simply an additional fee on top of the fees you're already paying. This $800 fee, it's renewable annually. Annually. You get to pay $800 per year for the right, for permission to possess and own a firearm. And you pay that to the Attorney General. It's not an insurance company. The federal government is not an insurance company. They call it insurance, but you're paying the federal government this $800. Now they go on to identify military-style weapons. And of course, it's all the more common ones that we would expect that they would include in something like this. Norinco, Mitchell, AKs, Beretta, AR-70, a Colt AR-15, FNFAL, all that good stuff. We're not going to go through all this list. Guys, it seems like military-style weapon is their new name of choice. Because now that's the bad guy. Because now a semi-automatic rifle that has the ability to accept a detachable magazine and at least 2 of the following: a folding or telescoping stock, pistol grip, bayonet mount, flash suppressor, or grenade launcher. Now those that they used to call assault weapons now are called military-style weapons. They've somehow abandoned assault weapon in here. You know how they used to love that term so much? Guys, they have totally abandoned it in this entire bill. But now they refer to them as military-style weapons. Here's your military weapon again, a semi-automatic pistol that has the ability to accept a detachable magazine, which is pretty much every pistol that I own except a couple of revolvers here. But also has a threaded barrel, shroud that is attached. That's going to be your AR pistols, by the way. Semi-automatic version of any automatic firearm. So obviously most pistols, you guys have seen the videos of the automatic Glocks. I've actually shot what would be considered an automatic 1911 one time that was gunsmithed in the wrong way with the sear and everything, and this thing was actually fully auto. I fired one before. So most pistols can be made into a fully automatic. So this is going to apply to all of these. So any of you that have Glock 19s and Glock 17s, for sure, you're now going to need the standard license. You're also going to need the military license. Now, going down below that, it says deadline for establishment. This is actually for kind of the wording for the Attorney General and all those guys to put this stuff out. Within 1 year after the date of the enactment of this act, the Attorney General shall prescribe final regulations to implement the amendments made by this subsection. Let's remember who the Attorney General is. Again, Merrick Garland, very anti-gun. So when we start complaining about the meat and potatoes in this bill, H.R. 127, let's not forget that the Attorney General can add or subtract anything he wants to this, because they're saying in this section right here that he has the right to change anything he wants to before the enactment of this law. This, as you can see by my notes, is where you pay the price. This is where they list the penalties. I'm just going to go through these real quick here so that I don't bore the heck out of you. Your first penalty will be for anyone who possesses a firearm or ammunition who is not carrying a valid license. And in the case of a firearm owned by the firearm is not registered to the person. If you're not carrying the license to say that you have permission by the federal government, it feels so stupid saying that because this is the God-given right. But if you're not carrying your license from the government to give you permission, let me follow my lines over here. Whoever knowingly violates this section shall be fined not less than $75,000 and not more than $150,000, in prison not less than 15 years and not more than 25 years. They're going to break you and they're going to imprison you. That's not where it stops, guys. Next one, it shall be unlawful for a person to transfer a firearm or ammunition to a person who is not licensed under section 932C1. That 932C1 is for anyone who is an FFL, Federal Firearms License Dealer. So that means that if you transfer a firearm, this is where they get the gun show loophole that they're so proud of and they like so much to exploit. They don't actually talk about the sale of private guns. A lot of the bills that these people have put out, and they specify the transfer and how you have to pay to transfer and how you have to use an FFL to transfer. Like, they go into a lot of detail. They slip it in here. They slide this in here by giving you the section that you're going to find this in the U.S. Code, 932C1. So if you transfer a gun to anyone or ammunition to anyone, whether it's a loan, a sale, a gift, you will be responsible for paying a fine of a minimum of $50,000 and a minimum of 10 years in prison, up to 15 years in prison, or both. Whoever knowingly violates section 922BB4 shall be fined not less than $75,000, not more than $100,000. That's where it says it shall be unlawful for a person holding a valid license issued under section 932 to transfer a firearm to any individual who has not attained 18 years of age. That's where we talked about earlier, you're not going to be able to loan your son or give your son a firearm, and your son's not going to be able to have it anyway because he's got to be 21 or older to even possess that firearm. But if you give that firearm to him, not only is he paying the fine because now he's in possession of it, and not only is he going to jail because he's in possession of it, you gave it to him. So now you're going to be in non-compliance as well. $75,000, you're going to also get hit with $75,000, and you both will get 15 years in jail. Well, at least maybe you can spend it together because you'll spend the exact same amount of time in jail, so maybe you can keep each other company. I don't know how that's going to work with Bubba in the bunk above. If the transferee of the firearm possesses or uses, now I want you to listen to these words. If the transferee, that means the person that I gave the gun to, sold it, gave it, loaned it, whatever, the person who's receiving the firearm, if this person possesses, just has, not even use, but possesses or uses the firearm during or in relation to a crime. In other words, they don't have to be in the process of committing the crime. They could be leaving the crime scene, just in relation to the crime, and anything, talking to somebody that might have been considered part of the crime. Maybe you were in the room when they were planning the crime, and then they left and they committed the crime. If that person were holding a firearm, or worse, used it in the commitment of that crime, the commission of that crime, or an unintentional shooting, and that person accidentally shoots somebody, anybody, themselves by accident or somebody else by accident, or suicide, the transferor, me, the person who gave, loaned, or sold that gun, the transferor shall be fined not less than $100,000 and in prison not less than 25 years. If somebody steals a gun out of my house, I'm responsible for that gun up to the tune of a minimum of $100,000 and 25 years in prison is what I can get if they shoot themselves accidentally or use that gun in a crime, or they're in a room when somebody's talking about committing a crime. If you stole a case of beer from a liquor store and had that gun, that's the charge that's going to be put on you and the person who you stole that gun from, borrowed it from, or bought it from, and any unintentional shooting or suicide. Slippery slope does not even begin to define what we're talking about here. Talking about insurance earlier, whoever knowingly violates section 922 shall be fined not less than $50,000 and not more than $100,000, in prison not less than 10 years and not more than 20 years. That's the insurance section. So if you don't buy their $800 insurance every single year, you could be in prison for 10 years and fined for a minimum of $50,000. Well, wait a minute. If I'm paying insurance, then why am I having to pay? Why am I having to pay if somebody steals my gun or I loan a gun to somebody? Why am I having to pay $100,000 and go to jail for 25 years? What the heck is the insurance for? Because it's not insurance. That's exactly why. They're calling it that because everybody will accept that. Everybody will come to terms with that easier because most of us have insurance. So it seems like an acceptable thing to have. It's simply a play on words because by the very definition of insurance, it's absolutely not insurance. If you own or possess 50 caliber bullets or rounds of any kind, you're going to pay a minimum of $50,000, spend 10 years in jail. And if you are caught with a standard capacity magazine of 11 rounds or more, you will pay a fine of $10,000 for a minimum and serve at least 1 year in prison for that. Now, let's remember this. Anytime there is a law that is broken, if you're caught with a standard cap magazine and you have 50 of them, that's not going to be one charge. We all know this. They quantify these charges based on how many of whatever you have, the possession of whatever you've got, if we're going to use drug laws and whatnot. So if I have 50 30-round magazines, which are perfectly legal for me to own, buy, possess, give, sell, whatever right now I'm going to have to, there's no grandfathering in here, guys. Now I'm going to have to destroy, give them back to the government, or not back, give them to the government, do something to get rid of them because it's not going to be legal for me to possess them. Again, fellas, I want you to understand something. There's no grandfather clause in here. Every magazine that you got, this ain't like the 1994 deal. Every high capacity magazine that they say that you have that's 11 rounds or more, you got to get rid of. Or you're going to have compounded sentences and penalties thrown on top of that. This is one of about 6 that I'm waiting on the wording of 5 others to come out. When they say the devil is in the details, it's worse than that. The devil wouldn't come up with something like this.
Nobody does it like OTT TV.